One of my patrons recommended the show Adolescence for this big video I'm working on, and oh my goodness, I'm so glad they did because I watched the entire thing yesterday and I need to talk to you about it. This video is indeed full of spoilers, but I also understand that sometimes it's easier to watch a commentary video about something as opposed to the thing itself. Like I do that when it comes to horror movies, for example, if I can even sit through those. Like, for example, The Substance. I am way too squeamish when it comes to body horror to have watched that, even though the feminist discourse around it would have been amazing for videos, as many people have demonstrated. But for me, I still can't watch the movie, so if you can't face watching this show because it is very real, it's very gritty, like you feel like you're right there, maybe this video can catch you up on something which I think is kind of essential viewing for people. Very much unavoidably, given what the show is actually about, we're talking about violence and misogyny in this video, and I'm going to be including some real-world examples as well as we get later on into the video, and if that is too much for you today, I fully understand. I always do have resources in the description box down below if I'm covering something which is a heavier topic. And this is something which is so pertinent to society today, and especially how kids are today. Kids today, my gosh, could I sound any more like I'm 35? But the effect of online misogyny from people like Andrew Tate and the real world implications of that, and also men's relationships with their children as well, like that father-son relationship. Oh my goodness, there is so much to say, so let's get on into it. But of course, if you're one of my patrons, you have the full extended and uncensored version of this video because there are a lot of things I can't say or show here on YouTube. Without any further ado, let's get into it. Episode 1, we meet our two cops, D.I. Luke Bascombe and D.S. Mishka Frank. And Bascombe gets a call from his son that he's feeling sick, so he doesn't want to go to school today, and Bascombe comments that it's because he's a softer touch than his mother, and that's something we are going to come back to later. And you're suddenly whipped in as the police charge into this house, bashing the door down. They charge up the stairs looking for their son Jamie, and we're like, what the hell, what has this person done? They must be so scary. And then you go into this kid's bedroom and you see this like child. They look like they're about 10, 12 years old maybe.
I'm arresting you on suspicion of murder.
And they're interrogating this kid Jamie, who gets brought out of bed, and it's revealed that he's wet himself, once again solidifying just how young and childlike this kid, because they are a kid, is. And it's revealed that the child, Jamie, is 13 years old. They put him in the police car and the family follow, and the thing is that the cops in the car, they're trying to give him advice. They're trying to say, you need to get a solicitor. They're actually trying to talk him through to calm him down because he is so obviously this scared, timid, little, frail child. He looks so small. That was all I was thinking.
I haven't...
Hey. We'll get...
Jamie gets asked what adult he wants to take with him. He could be assigned this random dude, or he could choose someone else, and he picks his dad, Eddie.
No matter what's happened, no matter what you've done or you haven't done, I want you to tell me the truth. Did you do it?
No.
Promise. Okay, then everything's going to be all right, isn't it?
He gets assigned a free solicitor because the family doesn't have one that they regularly use, because why would you? Like, this is kind of a sort of lower middle class family in this kind of average English town.
The best thing for you to do is to raise that chin up, be the good dad, and suck it up.
We're just here wondering what the hell this small, sad little kid could possibly have been accused of, that people are treating him like this monster. And so they go into the questioning room with the solicitor and his dad, and they start asking him questions about how he feels about women. So they bring up his Instagram, and he's following all of these models who are scantily clad, we could easily say, from the little faraway images that we see. And he's following them, but then also commenting really aggressively.
Are you attracted to women?
Yeah.
Do you have a girlfriend?
No.
And who are these boys? As they point out two other guys that he has been tagged in photos with. Tom is the one who tags him in photos, and Ryan is his other friend. And then they identify his shoes, and then we see a picture of Katie Leonard, and it turns out that they were in English class together because he is such a bright kid that he was bumped up 2 years to go into those classes instead. So he's a very intelligent boy.
She occasionally comments on your Instagram post, doesn't she? So, you know, it's probably a sign that you were, like, friends, right?
And Jamie instantly asks,
What is she who's dead then?
Why would you ask her?
Is she?
Oh, yeah. She is. And we think you know that.
were you attracted to her? No. Did you go and see her? No. And bring up the CCTV footage, and this is where the solicitor's like, I think that we should take a break because he knows if there is CCTV footage that they are bringing up now and they've just identified him in this image, oh yeah, this kid is guilty. But Eddie and Jamie are just like, well, we'll just keep going, it's fine. Because Eddie is so convinced after what his son has said that he hasn't done anything wrong. He's not done anything. Why were you following her? He's denying it. And then we see the CCTV footage and Jamie is waving his arms at Katie and she gets really angry and pushes him, and then he gets up and lunges at her. He pins her down to the ground and just starts bashing her. And then it turns out that he's stabbed her 7 times, or the person in the image her 7 times. It's pretty brutal. And Jamie starts crying again, reaching out to his dad to touch him to get some reassurance. But Eddie flinches away, asking, what have you done? Why? Just so completely taken aback, like disbelieving of what he's just seen with his own eyes. And then Eddie does hug Jamie, but we as the audience are still completely bemused by what the hell has happened. Episode 2. The issue is that they do not have a murder weapon still, so there is some loophole that Jamie could potentially get out of, because it's like, well, what evidence do you have? You've got some grainy CCTV footage, which could always be fake, you know, how that keeps on getting used. And so what, he's got the same shoes as the guy that was in the video? So the 2 officers go to Jamie's school, which just so happens to be Bascom's son's school as well. It's a day later and the whole school is talking about Jamie, wondering what he's done. Like, everyone is just chatting and gossiping about Jamie. And this is where we meet Jade, Katie's best friend, who is utterly heartbroken by what has happened. And it's also like she's the only person in this whole school that seems to be grieving at all. It really struck me watching this just how normal every day was, how normal everything was. There was no mourning thing, there was no nothing about this. Jade is being questioned by Bascom and Frank. They ask about Katie and Jamie maybe being in a relationship or something.
What was her relationship with boys like, Jade?
You mean with Jamie? She wouldn't go anywhere near him.
The teachers keep on saying that they're devastated, everyone's saying that they're devastated, but it's all about Jamie, really. That's where the focus is. Like, oh, what's going to happen to him? Oh, he must have done it. Oh, I hear he did this. I hear he did that. Like, no focus is on the victim, Katie. It's all about Jamie. So conveniently, the fire alarm gets pulled and Jade comes across Ryan, one of Jamie's friends, and she punches him. So there is much more to this story that we do not know. And of course, the only response that Ryan gets is,
Just got banged by a girl, you sausage.
no matter how young a kid is in the UK, they wouldn't call someone just something as silly and frivolous as a sausage. It would be a much more nasty slur that would get hurled at them. Ryan goes to the nurse's office to deal with like all of this mess which is going on with his face now. And he's being questioned by Bascom, but all he cares about is asking about Bascom's popularity. It's like, oh, so will you get popular with the girls and stuff? And this is the way that Bascom can get him to actually talk to him, because of course the only way to prove that you're a man is to have slept with a whole bunch of women. Bascom asks, on the night, was Jamie happy or sad? I don't know, we just hung out.
Did Jamie ever talk to you about his feelings, like how he was feeling?
Yeah, no.
And would you describe Katie and Jamie as friends? I don't know, and he just walks off. He just like shoves his way out the room, even though they're not done questioning him. So it's like, oh, there's probably something a bit more here. Really, they're getting nowhere with this investigation, but it's Bascom's son who is just like, mate, you're just fumbling around. You're missing the real problem here.
It's an exploding red pill. Pills, the blue pills means you see the world as it wants you to.
That's from The Matrix. You've been watching The Matrix?
Oh, my sweet summer child.
You're not reading what they're doing. Exploding red pill, call to action by the manosphere. About 80% of women are attracted to 20% of men.
Oh, she's saying he's an incel, Dad. And all those people have fired, which means they're agreeing with her.
He's saying that Katie was bullying Jamie. Does any of this affect you, son? His son is immediately like, you never call me son. You call everybody else son, but you never call me son. And if you don't know the lexicon of this sort of manosphere stuff, then it will go over your head, because a lot of it comes down to, it seems, emojis now, even though you can use different words and stuff. Like, there's a whole encyclopedia you can dive into, really, with this manosphere nonsense. And DS Frank says exactly what we're all thinking.
Involuntary celibate stuff, it's the Andrew Tate shite.
This is the real issue. And guess what? She notices the exact same thing that I did, that everybody's going to remember Jamie and nobody gives a toss about Katie. Because that's exactly what we've been seeing, because that was all I was thinking about, as I talked about in this video here. Everyone just cares about what's going to happen to Jamie. So Bascom goes back to Ryan because he wants to ask more questions, and he just legs it right out the window, just, my gosh, running as fast as possible. Bascom managed to keep up really well, my gosh. And he's pretty much yelling, what What does incel mean? Did you help him get that knife? Ryan confesses that it was his knife, but he just thought he was gonna scare her. He didn't think he was actually gonna hurt her with it. And Bascom tells Frank to get Jamie charged, and he's just gonna, like, unplug for a moment. And this is where he calls his son to try and actually build this bond, which is very clearly broken. And then the camera pans over to Jade, who we see is completely alone. She's got no support. She's got nothing at all. Just everyone else going about their day, and she's just this miserable kid. But then the drone footage keeps on going up higher, and you just see this average English town. And then the drone footage keeps on traveling, and you see the site where the murder happened, and you see all of these flowers, and then you see Eddie crying and placing flowers there because he knows that his son did it because he saw it. But is he talking to anybody about it? Is he checking up on the family? No, he just leaves flowers because that's all he really can process at this time. It's like doing the thing that you're meant to do, which is put flowers there, even though, I'm sorry, but like, what good are flowers gonna do when this is an epidemic? But never mind, we'll get to that later, okay? Now, episode 3, which is my absolute favorite episode, the power play that was happening here, the acting, oh my goodness, I was just glued, hooked. Oh, just wow. So we're at 7 months later, and Jamie is meeting with his case manager, Bryony. Oh my goodness, we finally have some good representation for my name on screen. I'm not just like this annoying kid that like ruins people's lives. Yes, finally. And she comes into the room bringing him a hot chocolate with sprinkles. They've very clearly got a good rapport. They've met many times, and she's even made him a sandwich. And Jamie's really happy and confident. It's almost like they're flirting in a way. Like Jamie, you can tell that he quite fancies her. Everything is totally fine whilst they're talking, and then she mentions the word masculinity, and flip goes the switch.
When I hear the word masculine, would be the way that masculine...
This all started because I said she sounded like a granny.
Come on.
It just feels like a trick.
Trick? Trick into what?
He starts accusing her, saying that she was trying to manipulate him and trick him. And she keeps on trying to de-escalate the situation, get the power back in the room because she's the adult. She should have the power.
I'm writing an independent, that's a very important word,
What did he say to
okay? An independent pre-sentence offence report.
And he says, what? I'm in charge?
Okay, let's move on.
Well, I'm in charge now, am I?
Maybe.
She asks him, what does being a man feel like? She asks Jamie about his dad, and this is when we, the audience, can see all of the many issues which are happening within the family household, which he is just shrugging off as being like a normal thing.
Well, why do you call him angry?
He just gets mad. We all do.
Okay, that's okay. He's just angry in a normal way.
He says, Dad's angry, but in a normal way. Like, yeah, he pulled a shed down once, but I thought it was funny at the time.
When he was in a proper rage, but that's as bad as it gets.
Were you frightened?
I thought it was quite funny at the time.
He's never hit my mum. And this is where it's also revealed that Jamie is not a sporty kid, but his dad took him to football practice to, bond with him. But then his dad just couldn't even look at him because Jamie sucked at football.
He just look away.
Pretend he didn't see.
Ashamed.
And Jamie looks over at Bryony, expecting her to say, like, oh, he wasn't ashamed of you. But she doesn't say any of that. Now, this theme of this shame, this humiliation, this rejection is so very critical to everything that we're talking about in this video, and also a video which I'm working on for the future. They continue talking, and Bryony mentions the word accuse. And
Ryan isn't accused of such a serious crime.
Accused. It's all accused. If I did it, if I hurt her, then I get it, but I didn't, so...
sets him off once again.
Look out! You want to sit down? You do not control what I do in my life. Get that in that f***ing little head of yours.
Saying all of these exact same talking points which we hear all the time in the manosphere, like these same triggers and exactly how they get angry, you'll see them replicated in the 13-year-old. Bryony manages to get control of the room again, and she asks about his dad again. He must have views on men and women. How does he treat your mum? He loves her. Are any of his friends women? Nah, they're men. Do you have any mates who are women? And he shakes his head and shrugs it off.
Are you attracted to women?
Yeah, I'm not gay.
And then she changes tact and asks him, for a 13-year-old, what's the normal amount someone would do with a girl or boy? I'm not gay, is his instant reaction. Like, the homophobia is so deep-seated. You can see it written everywhere because they don't want to be close with men or males around them. That's why you don't even talk about your feelings, because, like, can't be the F slur, can't do this, can't do that. Anything potentially associated with the queer community, it's like, nah, definitely need to like cut that off. And you may find it weird that an adult is asking a 13-year-old these questions, but it is approved, and also this is very relevant to the accusation which is against him. The evidence is pointed towards this and frustrations around this as being the motive for the murder. And he says for a 13-year-old boy, like kissing, touching, seeing stuff and like over the clothes mostly, like that's really normal. And she's like, for 13? But he can't keep up the lie, and it turns out that these were just photos of girls at his school, which got shared around by this dude, Fidget. And Katie was one of those girls.
How do you know that?
How did it feel to see that?
No, how would you guess that?
I didn't guess it. I asked.
How does it make you feel? Were you attracted to Katie?
She wasn't my type.
And he so quickly dismisses this, saying, oh, she wasn't my type, she was flat, everyone said it. But Katie fancied this boy Fidget, and he asked her for pictures, so she sent them to him. But because Fidget showed these pictures around, Jamie's like, oh, but he's ruined it now because everyone knows it was him that showed the pictures, so he won't get any more of them. And that's the thing that annoys him. Not the fact that these girls had their like trust betrayed, had their images shared without their consent or anything, which is, you know, technically revenge porn. It's the fact that Fidget won't be able to get more of these pictures to share around with the guys again. I think that all of us at high school know someone who has had their images shared around or videos shared around without their consent at all. And back in my day, in the 2000s, this was definitely a thing which happened in my high school. And we knew people by the nicknames that they got from what was happening in those images or in the videos and stuff. Bryony asked Jamie, do you think that girls are attracted to you? No, of course not, I'm ugly. Bryony doesn't tell him that he's not. She's not trying to placate him. She's not trying to reassure him. She's just wanting to get his truth. So she asks, how do you feel about being ugly? And he says, what, you're dead pretty. And this sets him off once again.
You thought I should have contradicted you when you said your dad was ashamed of you, and you think I should contradict you now when you tell me you think yourself ugly. I'm interested in the fact that you think you're ugly, Jamie.
Dead pretty.
This isn't about me, Jamie.
What, you don't think you're pretty?
I'm not the interesting person in this room.
And during this rant, he is yelling and he confesses to the murder.
Whether I understand what I did. No, I didn't say that. You putting words in my mouth. It's like a trap in here.
Jamie!
And then he starts to stand over her, towering her. And I was just struck by, this can't be the same little boy that we saw wet his pants when the police came to him. Like, he was such a tiny little boy, and now you're seeing like this was basically exactly what Katie would have seen just before she died. Like, it was so chilling seeing this.
I need you to sit down.
She is visibly scared, trying to hold it all together, and then he just growls, and then she flinches, and he's like, I know that I've got the power. This is a 13-year-old boy. And he's from a pretty normal family. And it turns out that Tommy, Ryan, and Jamie were being bullied, like they were being spat on and being tripped up. But it's like, oh, I wasn't being abused though, because that's the word that Bryony uses.
You were called names and you were physically abused.
No, I was just tripped up and spat on.
And then they go back to the topic of Instagram and how he's following all of these women. She points out that Katie commented some things under his picture, and he immediately deflects from this humiliation.
You look a bit red. Did I scare you when I shouted?
Could you tell me what these emojis
Oh,
mean?
how embarrassing is that? Getting scared of a 13-year-old.
But she keeps strong, asking,
What do these emojis mean, Jamie?
She's pretending like I'm part of one of those truth groups.
Are you part of those?
No.
And was you being an incel what she was saying with all of these?
and he says about the 80-20 rule.
What's an 80-20 thing?
And the 80-20 rule, for people who are blissfully unaware, I'm so jealous of you, it is this fallacy that 80% of women only go out with 20% of men.
I do think they're right about that, though.
Which, it's not true. No, there is literally no evidence for this.
And lots of people liked her comments quite a lot.
But then Bryony keeps asking, well, Katie didn't say this to anybody else. Why was she saying this to you?
I'm not what you say I am, or...
And what did she say?
She just smiled and said, okay, and walked away.
That just must have hurt.
I didn't kill her.
And he gets angrier and angrier, saying that you can't trust videos, it's fake news, because videos can be manipulated these days.
She was a bitch. Even you can see that. I should have killed her, but I didn't. I just...
Ha, look at you.
All hopeful, like when I say something important.
This 13-year-old kid really scared me at that point. And he says that he asked her out after the photo got leaked, thinking that she'd be weak. And so, you know, everyone else was calling her a slag. So he was like, well, maybe she'll like me now.
I went round and said I was sorry that they'd done that to her. Everyone was calling her a slag, you know, or flat or whatever. So I thought when she was like that weak, she might like me. It's clever, don't you think?
Her weakness made her more gettable. And this is commonly touted as great insight by all of the pickup artists and incels and everyone in that sort of sphere. Like, think about a character like Barney Stinson, for example.
Puffy cheeks, smudged mascara, slightly red nose. That girl was just crying. She's so sad and defenseless. Anyone have a condom?
From How I Met Your Mother, you know, the show that used to be wildly popular, but now we look back on it and we're like, oh my god, this was really bad. Why was anybody ever a friend with Barney? With her being weak, it makes her vulnerable to advances from anybody. This sounds more like hunting than wanting a relationship with someone, bro. Oh, wait, I forgot. This is all about racking up as many numbers as you can get. She's flat, but I didn't mind that. She laughed and said, I'm not that desperate. And then the emoji messages came afterwards. And he starts yelling.
She was a bullying bitch, right? That's the thing, you see.
I could have touched any part of her body, but I didn't. Most boys would have, but I didn't, so that makes me better, don't you think? Oh, Xander, shut the hell up, please. This whole, I'm a good guy, I went to help her, I went to see her when she was down, when she was weak, when she was vulnerable. I didn't, like, her or anything, though, so that means that I'm a good guy, because other guys would have. If that is where the bar is, my god, the bar is in hell. Seeing someone as another human being, that is seeing someone as literally a vessel. She asked Jamie if he understands what death is, and he insists, I didn't kill her, I didn't do anything. And you can see that she's got her professional walls back up. My god, I don't know how she made it through the session. It was very challenging making it through the episode. Wow.
Jamie,
She just didn't like me.
listen, do you understand?
And she is just saying, this is our last session, and this sends him into a panic spiral.
For your time, I'll ask Frank to come back in now.
Frank's my time.
Frank, and honesty, I'm grateful that
You think I'm being honest?
Could the panic be that he revealed during the session that he did murder Katie? Or, I think more so, it's because this woman who he found attractive treated him like a person. Even though she was just doing her job, she was doing emotional work with him as well. She was accepting whatever he said as truth.
Was to assess
Because I like you.
as a professional.
Not like that, not fancying you, just as a person.
And he starts panicking, saying, don't you like me? Just a bit, just as a person.
Don't you even like me a bit? What did you think about me then? Don't you even like me a bit?
Jamie, come on, man, please. Okay? Jamie.
What did you think about me then?
And he starts screaming and hitting at windows. And once again, this comes back to humiliation and validation. He reacts strongly to rejection as it's closely tied to both of these things. He's feeling rejected at this point, and anytime he starts to feel rejected, we've seen him lashing out. And he can't lash out in the same way towards bullies at school, but he can lash out this way towards women because he views them as being weaker than, as being lesser than, just like he felt his father rejected him when he couldn't look at him when he was playing football. And this whole thing is talked about so much in the book, which I've talked about once again in this video here, by Matt Brown, which is She Is Not Your Rehab. Where women are seen as the fixers of men, girls are meant to placate and heal boys. Them saying no is unacceptable because they aren't getting that love and intimacy from boys or men. And I don't mean sexually, I mean the genuine intimacy of actually knowing somebody and being there for them and still liking them even when you see the kind of quote uglier or weaker sides of them. So because guys can't say that they want that from men in their lives, they can't say that they want intimacy, they can't say that they want to be more close with someone. Otherwise, then the homophobia trigger just goes like whew, whew, whew. So they expect, as they've been told time and again, that women are there to be their emotional support. That women are meant to be their emotional band-aid, be there for them, the fixer, the calming good, the one that makes a man want to be better, the one that can center him. Think Black Widow singing to Hulk to calm him down. Episode 4. Now it's the father's time to reflect, and turns out it's a little bit later, it's his birthday. So his wife Christine is trying to make sure that everything's really nice. She's cooking up like an extra special breakfast for him. And we see in their interaction in the kitchen how she's trying to constantly placate him, be softer around him, and put him down really gently. What's worse is someone graffitied on Eddie's work van with the word nonce. Now, if you're not from the UK, you won't have a clue what this means. It's a slang term for an alleged or convicted sex offender, usually around children. So it's a pretty serious thing to have displayed across the side of your van, okay?
And it's not happening, we're not having this conversation. Not again, love. What would I want your mum to get me work for? Hey, I've got work here, right? Do you want to take her out of college? Do you want to ruin her life as well? Hey,
Like, this dynamic that we're seeing between the parents will be so familiar to many of you, I'm sure. Whether you grew up seeing your caregivers fall into this pattern, or if you yourself just grew up with someone with anger issues in the house, and this constant walking on eggshells, and trying to make things extra nice to make sure that they feel appreciated enough so then they're not set off in any way. You're preempting any potential bad thing and making things as nice as possible so then there's no way that they could possibly lash out at you. And this role of the person to make everything extra nice often falls onto women. If when you are watching this show, you are watching them and you're like, well, this is just normal life. Like, I am so sorry to be the one to tell you that this is not how you should be in a household. And I really hope that things are better for you now, because this is not normal. This is not okay to constantly be scared, really. That's what the women in this household are. So he is furious, desperately trying to clean this off, and he's unable to, so he demands that they have to go to the store to get the stuff to clean it off. It's also really important to know that they haven't moved house. They're still in the exact same place where the police raid happened, and all of their neighbors know about this. And what we pick up at the start of the show is Eddie is full on with work. Like, he is working all the time. Like, he comes back from his night shift just before the police arrive. But money problems get brought up with his wife, Christine, because, you know, how many people are really going to hire you to do work for them when your son is a murderer? You know, like, especially in a small local town like this, everybody knows everybody else's business. They really do establish that, with the neighbors constantly looking over the fence at each other in like a judgmental as opposed to a neighborly way. Instead of him just going by himself, he drags his daughter and wife along with him. No one's had any breakfast yet, to the store to try and find some stuff. And he finds someone for help to get this tag off his work van. And the guy he's talking to recognizes him, and he's like, oh my goodness.
On your side, you know. Your son's side, for what it's worth. Well, I've seen the photos of her.
But he doesn't recognise him in a bad way. He's like, we're all on Jamie's side. If you need anything, there's heaps of us who will support you.
You should get him a good lawyer, that's what I think. You know, if you crowdfund it, there's lots of us that get behind it.
But notably, this is after he immediately commented about kids tagging this dude's van.
A tag? God, kids. Well, I blame the parents.
Saying, oh, blame the parents. And it's like, yeah, that's the question that we haven't really answered in all of this, hey? This whole where were the parents thing gets brought up all the time. For example, say if a girl gets, it's like, well, where were your parents? Why weren't they looking out for you? Why weren't they wielding a sword around you? As if the perpetrator who did the crime is not the one that's ultimately responsible. In Eddie's financial situation, he can't afford to do all of the fancy stuff which this dude is telling him to do. So he just grabs some blue paint, and as they leave, he recognizes these kids on these bikes who were yelling at him earlier. He sets his focus on them, convinced that they followed him, and he is just screaming at them, fuming.
Don't laugh at me, boy! Don't laugh at me!
It is absolutely unbridled fury that you see, and he tosses him away. He throws the kid's bike after him, and Eddie storms back to the van and just hurls a paint can at it. With the women, of course, flinching. The police have turned up, because of course they have. He's just yelling at them to get back inside, and he wants the women to just get in the car. The scene where they're driving back home together, the tension was just palpable. This whole, like, I don't know what I can do to make sure that he doesn't swerve us off the road. But what would make this day even better? A phone call from Jamie, of course. He wants to just wish his dad a happy birthday and check that he got the card that he made for him, because Jamie does what? Jamie is really good at art. And the picture that he drew for his dad was really good, actually. And it's now that Jamie decides that he is going to plead guilty, and his father just stops. Like, he doesn't talk, he doesn't do anything. And so his mum pipes up saying that she and his sister are in the car as well, and he's like, oh, I thought I was just talking to dad. Just thinking that you're having a casual call with a dad on his birthday, you know, saying that, yeah, you're going to plead guilty to murder because you did it. At 13, they head inside, and because these are English people, they haven't talked about things properly, because why would you? You just bottle everything up, because that's really, really healthy to do.
You saw the tape, I didn't. This isn't you. Threatening kids, wrecking your van. But him going guilty is probably for the best.
I didn't want to believe it. But I saw it.
He keeps on trying to connect with Eddie, and this is where he says about his childhood, how his father used to absolutely beat the living hell out of him with a belt, and he swore that he would never beat up his kids. He never wanted to be like his father. But then he's like, But am I worse though because I've made a murderer? And this is where it's revealed that he took Jamie to football as a way to try and connect them both, you know, to be able to build their relationship. But because Jamie wasn't good at it, and all he heard was all of the other dads mocking him, like berating him, he just couldn't look at them. And so they did another very masculine thing, which was boxing, and that didn't work either. Jamie really liked to draw. He was really good at art. And this was something which brought them both heaps of joy, but, you know, painting, artwork, that's such a feminine pursuit. That's not masculine at all. What would his dad be able to do with that? They can't bond over that. And so they started playing like football games, like computer games together. And that was kind of okay, but they still weren't connected. And that was when Jamie wanted the computer, and so he got the computer. And it's just like, well, all teenagers just lock themselves in their room. And it's like, I know that I did, but maybe not all teenagers do that. And Eddie said he had no idea what Jamie was looking at, and how Eddie, when he was just looking up videos for the gym or something, for like workouts, how he was starting to get that sort of red pill same stuff and saying how women should be treated. And I've told you in the past, this exact same thing happened to Brandon, because Brandon's always been interested in finance and like financial independence and all that other stuff. And those sorts of ways, anything about confidence, anything about making more money, anything about looking better, those are all places where these sorts of guys that are like bringing people into the manosphere happen. And like you can't tell at the start, and it just spirals and spirals more. You finally have this talk where they do not understand how they have made a murderer, what they could have done differently, what they've done wrong.
Sometimes think we should have stopped it, seen it and stopped it. But we made them, didn't we?
And they still conclude that she was still a good mum and that he was trying as a dad.
You're a good dad, a great dad. But we made them.
So if my dad made me, how did I make that?
And the thing is that we do have to commend him. He did break one generational cycle. He broke the cycle of violence, which is great, but he didn't deal with his very real anger issues. And that's where so much of these problems actually stem from.
Shouldn't we have done more, though?
I think it'd be good if we accepted that maybe we should have done.
Like I said, they're just very painfully English in the way they don't talk about things until things boil over to a point that someone starts punching a wall, or in his dad's case, pushing over a shed.
He just kept saying it wasn't me. And I believed him. And then I saw the tape.
Ow. And then the teenage daughter comes in saying, is everything all right? And this is where we have a parentified child, my dears. She's the one that has to carry the burden of being bullied for the fact that she is Jamie's sister.
Was it them lads?
Yeah, do you know them?
Yeah.
Look, if they cause you any trouble.
Dad, everyone causes me trouble. Jamie's sister.
They didn't leave, they didn't take her to another school or anything. She's been horrendously bullied this whole time. But she has to be the one who has thought all of this through and say, no, we shouldn't leave, because no matter what we do, this will always find us.
We're staying here. We're not moving. We can't move.
We should just stay here, and Jamie is ours, isn't he?
If we move, he'll be better for a bit. But then someone's just going to find out something. And then that something's going to be everything. And then it'll just be even worse. Jamie's ours.
Like, she's gone through all of this work herself, and her parents have done nothing. But she has to be the voice of reason. Elder children, how are you doing? Are you feeling okay? Because I'm sure they felt a bit seen in that scene. And we end the show knowing far more about the murderer than we did about the victim at all. The victim isn't really even that much of a focus, really. It's more about the motive. It's more about the weapons. It's more about how they did it. Like, the one person, Jade, who is deeply impacted by this, she just gets abandoned. And no doubt the reporting of this would circle back to the exact same things that we've seen happen all the time. How this young boy was struggling with mental health, and so that's why he was violent and he took it out on girls. But we don't see this happening with girls going and shooting up guys and guys, though, do we? This is a male violence issue, and it should just be stated as that. We also end the show not knowing if Jamie got convicted, but I hope he did. And I hope that there is some sort of reform and change, because that is really terrifying what that angry outburst can just do. And the intention with having the knife and Anyway, let's talk about everything that is actually to do with the show now. No, the kids aren't alright. We know that the kids aren't alright, and people do love to pull clips saying that kids are growing up too fast these days, but I would honestly argue that's not the real problem. The real issue is kids not being taught about consent. Kids, especially boys, being taught that girls are for them, that they are not full autonomous beings. And with boys not being shown how to handle their emotions, how to healthily connect with their emotions, with their father figures or whatever like amazing patriarchal figure they can look up to, preaching about stoicism in a very warped way, which isn't real stoicism. It's such a warped version where instead of actually feeling the emotions and recognizing them, you just push them down and pretend that they don't even exist. One of my patrons raised a really interesting incident which just happened. Isaac Hajar crashed his F1 car in his very first race, and he's only 20 years old, and obviously he was upset after this, so he was crying. So what did the people around him do? The camera crew just carried on filming him, following him around, not comforting him, not getting him a tissue, as if to further humiliation. And someone senior on the team even criticized them for crying. And this, don't forget, is a huge global stage. This is a huge moment, and that would have been so scary. But luckily, one man out of all of the men around did the right thing. Lewis Hamilton's dad, Anthony, went over to him and gave him a hug and reassured him. It's this acceptance of this sadness, of these emotions. He wasn't chastising him or mocking him for being upset. What we so often see, and is normalized, is the boy gets this social rejection and also being humiliated for crying. See what I mean when I say rejection, humiliation, acceptance? All of this plays in so strongly. And you know what? I'm going to talk about one of my absolute favorite books again, Bell Hooks' The Will to Change. She talks about this massively in this book. We need to stop this severing of emotions happening to little boys. Boys are growing up idolizing people like Andrew Tate, who display this very twisted form of masculinity, who tells guys that women are simultaneously and give it away to everyone, and that they're because they haven't given it up to you. This is filtered into our schools in such a scary way that female teachers are having to quit because of the harassment they're facing from boys. And when they bring up all of these issues with the boys in the classrooms, what happens to the female teachers? They just get told, oh, just use some teaching techniques. Just use classroom techniques. That will handle it. And it's like, no, not if these boys are taught that women are only there to serve you. These boys aren't going to listen to women because they've been taught not to. And this violence against women and girls is on the rise. You'll probably be aware of the tragedy that happened in the UK recently, where Eliane Andam, who was 15, was murdered by Hassan Sentamu, 17, who had a history of attacking girls and carrying knives. He the popular schoolgirl in front of other children, shoppers and commuters. And what was his motivation? He had recently broken up with one of Eliane's friends, and apparently the friends teased him, but they wanted to get the stuff back, so they wanted to, give his clothes back and do the swap and get the teddy bear back. And he told his friend, fuming, he couldn't let this slide. I'm just going to quote the BBC article now. The next day he donned a mask and gloves and armed himself with a knife before a planned meeting at the shopping centre to hand over his ex-girlfriend's teddy bear in exchange for some of his clothes. Eliane stood up for her friend when Sentamu turned up without the bear, which led him to chasing Eliane in a fury and stabbing her repeatedly as she lay on the ground. Remember how I talked about humiliation and rejection before? The exact same motivations behind this. He was humiliated in front of others and he was rejected. Therefore, he saw this as his reason, validly, in his mind, weirdly, sparked this violence, this planned violence. And that's only the most recent one. Remember when a 15-year-old girl rejected flowers from a boy who was 17 and then he stabbed her in broad daylight with like a foot-long knife? There is something deeply wrong if we're not teaching boys how to handle rejection. Like, this came up in my last video about we want male yearning back, but I went on very specifically in here about the dark side of yearning, the entitlement, the not seeing the girl that you're pursuing as anything other than like this trophy to obtain because you chose her. You feel entitled to her. But that comment section is full of angry men who clearly do not listen to anything that I'm actually saying. If you're trying to pick a male role model, don't let it be Andrew Tate or Xander, okay?
I just don't want to get it wrong for me lad, you know what I mean? You'll be fine. He's a good kid, yeah? And I'm a good dad.
I have to talk about fatherhood because I love the way that this was portrayed on screen and explored, because nobody had a good relationship. Father-son, they were all stilted, they were all bad. It just shows how many guys don't know how to be a dad because they didn't have a good dad themselves. They don't know what model to replicate. There's intergenerational trauma that we see the very real effects of, and how that continues to go down through the cycles because the root issues aren't really dealt with. Yes, Eddie stopped being violent. Eddie was not violent to his kids, but he didn't deal with the root issues. His dad had anger issues, just like Eddie does. It is not Eddie's fault for being abused, and it's a terrible tragedy that happened, but it is his responsibility to heal those wounds and not continue putting that stuff on his kids and his wife and those around him. I'm going to be unpopular, but I'd say that you need to be dealing with like these sorts of big issues before bringing life into the world. That's my personal take on it though. Probably going to get some people not liking me for that, but that's just what I think. So much harm is caused just because these men are emotionally stunted and they don't know how to express their emotions or to connect with other men on this sort of level. And when it comes to their sons, that's even harder because it's like, well, you're a kid as well and you're meant to look up to me. How am I meant to still get respect from you if I'm vulnerable with you? Because being vulnerable as a man under like patriarchal masculinity, that's a big no-no. And it just breaks my heart how many guys will have dealt with this sort of thing. And then you have to try and break those cycles yourself. You know, going to therapy, doing all of that stuff and actually connecting with others in a more emotional way. It's really hard. And that's another reason why I keep on saying that patriarchy is the problem here. I'm not blaming men. I'm saying that there's issues. The advice that Eddie was given at the very start of this, where he didn't know what to do, was chin up and be a good dad, aka swallow all of your emotions, be strong, be emotionless, and just be there. Physically there, but not emotionally there. Being a good man is still so often thought of as just being a provider and not physically hitting your wife, and then you're a great man. For men's sake, for your own sake, you should be saying that that's not enough. Being a good dad, as many good dads know today, like I know people in my life who are great dads, they've done this emotional work and they have a great emotional bond with their children. We need more men to step up and face this uncomfortable work. Therapy isn't bad. In fact, it can save you and the people around you. And I'll be getting into that in my next video. Notice how D.I. Bascombe referred to himself as being a soft touch because he kind of let his son do whatever he wanted. This also exposes how naive he ultimately was when it comes to what's really going on in the world. This is even a guy who is on the ground dealing with crimes as serious as murder, still doesn't see all of the things which are connecting all of this together. He's still very sheltered in that way because he doesn't have this connection with his son, because it doesn't have this connection with what's really happening with boys today. I know that people say whenever you bring up this incel or manosphere sort of stuff, oh, but it's just online, they're just joking, oh, they're just trying to get a rise out of people. Like, no one's serious with that. But the thing is, this is having real life consequences, and people saying directly their inspirations is from these people who have done this before, is from people who are lauding these guys as being heroes, as being their role models. So many parents don't know what's really going on, and they never have, okay? Generation after generation, kids have been hiding stuff from their parents. But with this increased violence towards women and girls, it's time that they did. This may not be the show that we want, but this is the show that we need. I thought the acting was impeccable in this. The kid that played Jamie, Owen Cooper, this was his first ever role. He's going places. Like, you went from like this tiny boy to this terrifying man. Like, the range, this was wild. Oh my goodness. I want to give him an award. His acting was that good. I was scared of a 13-year-old. If you made it all the way to the end of this video, please tell me what you thought of the show, because I think that you can tell I can yap about it for ages, but that's also because they didn't tell you everything. You had to put stuff together yourself, and there is so much which was unsaid, and it was done in such a good way. You really felt like you were there. I felt like I was back in the UK, like as a high school kid, and I hated it. But like in the best way, if that makes sense, because they made it feel so real, and every tense moment, it was palpable. Like I was just like vibrating with nerves. But yeah, this has been quite an intense video, hasn't it? I really do appreciate you sticking around to the end. I think that, honestly, we just need to leave the hug emoji, because I'm sure that we all need a bit of a hug after this. And I really want to say thank you very much to all of my patrons. As always, they did vote that you get a separate video on this, so then the next video you get, even though it's probably going to be an hour, it won't be 2 hours if I included all of this in there too. And an extra special thank you to my top tier Trash Panda enablers: Alyssa Pisani, Birgit, Kerry Quake, Danielle, Laura Bell, Jam, Megan Connolly, Michaela Garfinkel, Mila Gautier, Stella Sapiente, Tammy Poitras, Tim Long, Tonya Beignet, Veru Cat Mama. I really hope that you all have a wonderful rest of your day, a wonderful week. I know that it feels like the world is burning, but like I said, there are always resources in the description box for you down below. And once again, if you haven't completed the housework and unpaid labor survey, which I've got at the moment, it is linked for you down below too, because I really want to have as many people feed into that as possible. And yeah, maybe go watch something pleasant after this. Maybe go for a walk if it's sunny. I know that in the Northern Hemisphere you're probably in spring at the moment, right? Because we're entering autumn now. So yeah, see some sunshine if you can. See if you can find some daisies or daffodils or ducklings or something cute. What about if I just show some ducklings on the screen now? That will probably help all of us, hey? I love ducklings. Anyway, I'll see you all next time. Bye bye. Oh my gosh, the spot hair is really growing. Ooh, I can really see that. But my lashes are still glued on, so we're okay.